She called me into a mandatory meeting while I was on vacation, just so her regional manager could publicly tear me apart for a letter I wrote about our working conditions. I didn't even get to defend myself. They turned me into the villain of the store in front of everyone, then demanded to know who helped me write it, like I'd committed a crime. They thought I'd come back ashamed and obedient. Instead, I came back and helped almost the entire staff walk out. A couple years ago, while I was in school, I worked part-time at a small jewelry store. Technically, it was part of a chain, and our city had 2 branches, annoyingly close to each other. We sold bracelets, rings, chains, mostly cheap costume jewelry aimed at people who didn't have much money. A lot of it was honestly ugly, but the job itself wasn't terrible. Our location didn't have a manager for a while. It was sort of overseen by the manager from the other store, plus my most experienced coworker, an older woman who'd been there for 16 years and basically kept the place running by sheer force of competence. The team was mostly women over 40, some closer to 60. They were kind, funny, reliable, and they actually cared about customers. The rules were simple: stay busy, don't look like you're standing around, and sell as much as possible. Higher-ups could randomly show up, and if they caught you not actively doing something, you'd get lectured or written up. Our regional manager, who matters later, rarely came in, and usually her visits were announced ahead of time. I'm a pretty careful person. I did my work properly, I rarely showed up late, and if someone had an emergency, I'd cover shifts. For the first 6 months, everything was fine. Then we got a new store manager. At first, we thought it would be okay. She was being trained by the manager from the other branch, the one we all got along with. So we assumed she'd follow the same general system. We were wrong, so wrong. The first couple weeks, she mostly observed. Then one day, she called a staff meeting and went straight for the throat. She told us our customer service was disgusting, our sales were pathetic, and that we were all doing everything wrong. She wasn't even subtle about what she wanted. She wanted a younger team. The older women who had been loyal to that store for years. In her mind, they were dead weight. Then she announced she was taking full control, and everything was going to change. And it did. Overnight, the store turned into a constant disaster that somehow always got blamed on us. One of her favorite hobbies was moving things. Every single day. Gift cards, moved. Register supplies, moved. Cleaning supplies, moved. Product drawers, rearranged. Storage, reorganized. It became a routine where a customer would ask for something basic, and I'd have to awkwardly stall because I genuinely didn't know where she'd hidden it this time. Of course, let me just grab that for you. And then I'd be behind the counter digging through drawers like I was looking for contraband. It was humiliating. She'd moved the gift cards 3 times in 1 week, and somehow that was my fault for not being prepared. The back room was worse. She'd storm in there like a tornado, fling boxes around, pile things in random places, then leave. Later, when I tried to find stock for customers, I'd have to climb through her mess like I was exploring a collapsed cave. Then she created this insane rule. We were not allowed to unpack shipment after noon. Our store opened at 10 a.m. Shipment would come in, sometimes multiple boxes packed with tiny earrings and accessories that had to be sorted, tagged, and displayed. But on many mornings, you were alone in the store, so you're handling customers, cleaning, restocking, doing the register, and also expected to unpack 3 boxes before noon. If you didn't, the boxes piled up in the tiny back room until it was physically difficult to even walk inside. I tried to bring it up calmly. I told her the rule wasn't workable and we needed more time or more people scheduled earlier. Her response was basically, "You'd finish in seconds if you weren't always talking." I stared at her like she'd lost her mind, because I was alone. Talking to who? The mannequins? I was younger then, shy, and I needed the money, so I tried to adapt. I tried to be faster. I tried to bend myself into whatever shape she wanted. Then she started going after my older coworkers. The assistant manager, again, 16 years of experience, mid-50s, was tough on the outside, but genuinely sweet and loyal. Customers liked her. No one ever complained about her. Suddenly, the new manager decided this woman was rude to customers. She also accused her of leaving the store dirty. One day, my coworker and I had cleaned and organized together at closing. The next morning, the manager came in early, rearranged everything, took photos, and dumped them in our WhatsApp group with nasty messages like she'd caught the assistant manager being lazy. Then she attacked her personal life. The assistant manager watched her 4-year-old grandson on Wednesdays. The manager acted like that was proof she didn't want to work. And the WhatsApp group was its own nightmare. She would send aggressive messages, then delete them seconds later, like she wanted to throw punches but not leave bruises. Or she'd rage quit the group entirely, like a child slamming a door. We ended up creating multiple new chat groups over months because she kept leaving them whenever someone didn't immediately obey her. Then came the schedule chaos. There were multiple versions of the schedule floating around because she'd change it constantly. Sometimes she'd assign you a shift without telling you. No message, no confirmation, nothing. If you didn't show up, she'd act like you'd committed a betrayal. And if anyone asked her to remove or adjust a shift, she'd explode and say we needed to be available 24/7 because this job pays you. One of my older coworkers lived far away, almost an hour and a half commute each way. She asked, very reasonably, if she could be scheduled for longer shifts, so she wasn't traveling 3 hours total for a tiny work block. So the manager punished her by scheduling her for 2-hour shifts. Her explanation was so smug, it still makes my skin crawl. She's older, she probably can't stand for long. I'm doing her a favor. It was cruelty dressed up as care. Then the manager took a week off. We were relieved. A whole week without her mood swings, her insults, her constant rearranging, her blaming. We were breathing again. Before she left, she made one of her stupid little decrees. The small trash bin by the register had to be placed under the counter, which was fine when you weren't constantly opening packaging. But we unpacked product at the counter all day. With the bin under the counter, you had to bend and reach through this tiny gap like you were trying to retrieve something from a trap door. So while we were unpacking, we kept it next to the register. Then we'd put it back. Harmless. Except she was not harmless. During her vacation, the phone rings. The assistant manager answers. And it's the manager, screaming, demanding to know why the trash bin wasn't under the counter, and accusing us of unpacking product after noon. This woman spent her vacation stalking the store like we were suspects. That was when I realized something important. She wasn't just incompetent. She needed control like oxygen. She needed to catch us wrong so she could feel powerful. Then came the Saturday before Easter Sunday, one of the busiest retail days of the year. My shift started at 10 a.m. She was supposed to come in at 11. At the last minute, she canceled her shift and left me alone in chaos. And she didn't do the basic thing a manager is supposed to do before leaving someone alone. She didn't make sure I had change. I ran out of coins quickly. Customers started getting irritated because I couldn't give correct change. I called her. No answer. I called again. No answer. So I panicked and called a coworker who wasn't supposed to come in until 2 p.m. I begged her to come early so I could sprint to the bank and get change. Thankfully, she was already downtown and showed up about half an hour later. That day broke something in me, because it wasn't just that she abandoned me. It was that she would have destroyed me if I ever did the same thing to her. If roles were reversed, she would have treated it like a moral failure. But when she did it was fine. It was not her problem. So I wrote a letter. It was formal, but honest. I said the scheduling was a mess. The old system worked better, and her behavior was damaging teamwork and store operations. I even wrote that it wasn't meant as a personal attack, just a genuine attempt to improve things. I showed it to my coworkers first. I asked if they agreed. They did. So I signed it as coming from the entire team. I posted it on the door. Later, when I worked a shift with her, I asked if she'd seen it and what she thought. She smiled, sweet as sugar, and said, "Everything's fine, nothing to worry about." 2 weeks later, I finally got permission to take a vacation I'd been trying to get for ages. And while I'm on vacation, out of the country, she messages me. There's a staff meeting and I should really be there, or else. I told her I couldn't. I was on vacation and not even in the country. She didn't care. She demanded I show up. She implied consequences. So I stopped replying and blocked her temporarily. Because what was I supposed to do? Teleport? That evening, one of my older coworkers messaged me, "Be glad you weren't there." And then she told me what happened. The entire meeting was about my letter. The regional manager, the other monster I mentioned earlier, showed up and tore the letter apart like it was evidence in court. She acted like I had personally attacked the manager, humiliated her, and written slander. She claimed the manager was deeply hurt and offended. Then the regional demanded to know who else was involved, and she said, loudly, that if anyone wanted to quit, they could do it right now, because she had resignation paperwork ready. Then she mocked me like I was a spoiled child. She sneered about how ridiculous it was that I didn't want to be alone in the store for 6 hours, and said if I needed the bathroom, I should call security. She made the assistant manager cry, and my coworker ended her message with, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore." That was the moment a plan formed in my head. There were 7 of us total in that store, including me. 4 of us were completely fed up, not just with the manager's behavior, but with the way they'd used my vacation absence to publicly destroy me and threaten everyone else. So we decided to quit. Not just me. The older women too, the ones who'd worked there for 10 years, 12 years, 16 years. The people who actually held the place together. We didn't warn the manager, we didn't argue, we didn't negotiate. We sent our resignations directly to corporate, straight to the same office where my letter had ended up. And we timed it while the manager was on vacation. My older coworkers used sick leave and doctor appointments. They disappeared from the schedule one by one. And I stayed, because I wanted her to feel it. So for my final stretch, I followed every one of her stupid rules to the letter. Unpack nothing after noon? Fine. Boxes stacked up until the back room was basically impassable. Random schedule changes without warning? Sorry, my phone was on airplane mode. I had no idea. But the best part, the part I still remember like a scene from a movie, was the ear piercing. Our store offered ear piercing. It used to be optional. Then suddenly, under this manager and the regional, it became a pushy service we were supposed to sell. I don't even wear earrings. I hated doing piercings in the middle of a retail floor, with people watching. It made me uncomfortable. I'd always been allowed to avoid it, not anymore. They forced it. One day, I was standing there with a piercing gun in my hands, facing a customer, and my body just refused. I started crying. I couldn't stop. I was trying to apologize, trying to explain, but I was overwhelmed and embarrassed and furious and exhausted. It made the customer uncomfortable. It made the store look unprofessional. It was a mess. And I didn't even care anymore, because that's what happens when you break people down and treat them like disposable machines. Eventually, you get exactly what you built: chaos. By the time my final month ended, the store was collapsing. The new hires didn't know anything. The back room was a disaster. Sales dropped, and I had absolutely no motivation to train anyone to replace the coworkers who'd spent years building that place. Then I left, and the manager came back from vacation to a store staffed by 2 confused newbies and no experienced team. The other branch in our city refused to keep helping her. Their manager, who used to support our store, finally got sick of her arrogance and laziness. Apparently, she even insulted him when he wouldn't cover her shifts. Last I heard, corporate was debating whether to keep our location open at all, and the assistant manager, the woman she tormented, ended up in therapy afterward. But she's doing better now. We all are. Because once we left, we didn't just escape a bad manager. We removed the entire foundation that had been quietly holding up her little kingdom. And it collapsed exactly the way it deserved to.
That's where the story ends. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and see you next time.